Alright, so it's been a little while since I've done any updates here. I kind of figured I would talk about some of the parts and whatnot to my multi-rotor. Um, so I think where I kind of left off was a short video on the gimbal, which you can see it's still there, still attached. I had a couple issues with it and had to buy a new gimbal control board. This is a different gimbal control board, a little easier to program. The wiring for it is a little more stable, more flexible, longer cables, things like that. So the last one kind of crapped out on me, but I figure I would take some time to talk about why I switched control boards, flight control boards, and some of these other pieces laying around here. So you can kind of see that there's a large GPS antenna sitting on top. I have a spare, if you want to call it a spare. I had some issues when I swapped to this control board, so I decided to purchase a new GPS. This is essentially just an upgraded GPS that I have on it now. This one may have gotten banged up due to a crash inside of a warehouse about 3 months ago. From that crash, I replaced the motors, went to a little bit different KV rating. These are a little torqueier, even though they don't spin as fast, but they are quieter and more stable. So the frame is just a Hobby King 550 millimeter frame. There's 720 kV motors, 12-inch props, Mobius HD camera. It will do 1080p. I think most people run it in about 760. There's some good videos on YouTube about the differences between a Mobius and a GoPro, which the Mobius actually does better in lower light. So the Mobius is wired to an on-screen display board, which you really can't see it here unless I kind of show it to you underneath there. I've kind of tucked it away. That on-screen display goes into the video transmitter. Back here, I got rid of the standard antenna that it came with. This is a just a cheap clover leaf inside of the dome here, a little dipole antenna. Reception seems to be fairly decent. This transmitter's one of the more expensive ones. It does 5.8 gigs at 1 watt. So this thing's good for about 20 kilometers. So they advertise with this antenna maybe a little bit more than that. Am I going to fly that far? Obviously not right now, not something I want to try. The goal was to take it out over the bay. I do live in Northwest Florida, so pretty close to Destin. It'd be nice to get it out over some of the bays or film some days down at Crab Island. So this next piece with the antenna sticking out here, this is the data link for the Arducopter flight control board. So this is the 3rd generation of this control board. You could probably YouTube it and see some of the things that it'll do. Most of these boards, I think the original version of these boards were all built by 3D Robotics. These boards will do follow me modes, flight by GPS. You can tell it where to land, where to take off. You can control the height that it flies during its autonomous mission, if you will, if you want to call it that. It does it all based off of GPS. What else? The software GUI is fairly simple to use. It has a 6-axis gyro built into the board, among other things. I would recommend researching it. This is one of the cheaper boards on the market. It is fully programmable. For what it does, it's one of the cheaper boards on the market. It still runs about 80 bucks if you get a knockoff, but the knockoff is just as good as the 3DR stuff. So this receiver, this is just your standard 2.4 gigahertz receiver. This one is from FrSky. I had a Turnigy one. It wasn't that great, and I think I actually damaged it in my last major crash that I had. I was noticing when I switched from the KK board to the Arducopter board that there was some erratic flight issues. So hopefully with the new receiver and the new flight control board, I actually swapped to a different flight control board. That might fix my issues. So with the case on it, this is what the Arducopter boards kind of look like. Pretty simple. Your standard Android cell phone charger plugs right into that USB into your computer. No issues with that. Say 5,000 milliamp battery or a 5 amp battery. It's fairly large. It is very heavy. It weighs about 3.5 to 4 pounds. The size of this drone will lift it. But that's some other things I kind of need to play with. These motors don't spin very fast, even though they are torquey. There could potentially be some lift issues with it. So I haven't noticed any yet, but we will have to see. I have some of the old motors floating around here. They were 980 kV motors, so they spun a little faster, higher RPM. I was running 11-inch props. I had no issues before, so we'll see what happens with these. To talk about the radio or the 2.4 gigahertz transmitter here, this is just a cheap transmitter from Turnigy. It's a 9-channel transmitter. They run about $60, $65 maybe. They do not come with a backlight on the screen, so I did open it up and put a backlight in it myself. If you have any switches facing the wrong direction, it will not start up on you. So let me make sure all my switches are facing the right direction here, and we'll kick it back on. Oh, that wasn't right either. Been a little while. Let's see, it says switch error. I gotta remember which direction all my switches were. There we go. This should be right. Let's see if, there it goes. So that's pretty much that. I have 6 flight modes, I think, programmed into it right now. This changes the flight modes. That's flight mode 1, 2, 3, and then if I flip this down, it goes 4, 5, and 6. Yes, it does have a return to launch feature or return to home. I do have that set up. It has an intelligent orientation mode. There's, I think, 10 or 12 different flight modes. I'm only using 6 right now. Some of them I might have to test out a little bit later. We'll kind of walk through some videos on the different flight modes in another week or so. Anyhow, that's really it for the transmitter, other than blank module space in the back. So the factory module I took out. I have the new FrSky transmitter module here. This essentially snaps into place. There is some modification that you have to do to make it work. I have to open up the receiver again, open the transmitter again to remove a little small plastic piece in the back of it there and get it to work properly. See if I can kind of show it. This little plastic piece in here gets in the way, so I have to remove it. So this hobby, sport, whatever you want to call it, this research, it's hit or miss, I suppose. There's some different things you have to learn. It's definitely a learning experience for anything that you do. There's some other things I want to try out, such as this flight control board. It's a CC3D flight control board. It's very small. I kind of want to build maybe a 250 racer just to have some fun with, fly around the yard, and torment my dogs with. So do have to be careful when you're going to 250 or larger, because you can get hurt using these things. So these large 12-inch props will cut to the bone. I do have a mini that I bought from Amazon that I bumped into myself several times, and it doesn't hurt at all. So depending on what you have, could be dangerous, may not be. You just have to kind of be careful with it. So other than that, sorry about the mess. Some car parts, been working on the beast a little bit. That's that. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.